It's being able to rebound after maybe you had a night where you ate more than expected without shame, without drama. You just move on to the next aligned choice. And it's also realizing that food freedom isn't about never overeating or binge eating or emotional eating ever again, because that belief is something that keeps people. So it's also knowing that you're allowed to be a human. You are allowed to have nights where you eat one too many pizza slices, four too many pizza slices, and you're still able to hold yourself in this really loving, positive regard because you're allowed to be human and you don't have to be perfect.
Hello, and welcome to That's Just Human, a podcast that explores all aspects of being human, living in a human body, and having human experiences. I'm your host, Elisha Light Angel, and by day I'm a massage therapist, and just like you, I happen to live in a human body and have a lifetime of experiences. Today I am doing an interview with Kayla. We met on Instagram by chance and thought each other was cool people and we should do an interview because she's got a lot to talk about in regards to the body. She is a writer, a dancer, an alchemist, and an energy guide. And she's gone into becoming a food freedom and embodiment coach, and she helps women to break free from self-sabotage, feel safe and sexy and at home in their bodies. She's the creator of Food Freedom Fantasy, a sensual, story-driven method that uses archetypes, nervous system healing, and inner storytelling to help women turn cravings into clarity and self-care into sacred play. She believes that the most lasting change doesn't come from willpower, but from desire, devotion, and rewriting the story that you've been stuck in. And so today we get the pleasure of hearing a little bit about that and how she's delved into that and how she helps people. So please join me in welcoming Kayla. Thank you for coming on to my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about how you got started delving into the feminine body and health and how that's kind of played out for you.
It has been a story that started when I was 6 years old. So at that time, I experienced some pretty challenging life experiences. And that was when I started to sneak food, to binge eat, and to put on a lot of weight. So for most of my life, that was my identity, the one who struggled with food, the one who got bullied for their size, their weight. And I discovered fitness at the end of high school and going into my 20s, and I fell in love with it. I knew that that was something I really wanted to work on with people. And in the meantime, I did also struggle a lot with binge eating, also with bulimia. And I really discovered that it wasn't just food people needed to work on, it was all of the inside game pieces. So I did a lot of healing work. And then I got my first official personal training health coaching job in 2015. I was so excited. It was my dream job. This was my life's work. And as soon as I got that job, my binge eating returned full force. I put back on a ton of weight and I felt a ton of shame about putting on that weight because I'm supposed to lead by example and I was doing the opposite. And I was really in this chronic state of low self-worth and imposter syndrome. And throughout my journey, it was only after leaving the health coaching field in 2021 that I actually became the healthiest and the happiest that I had ever been. And I started to do more work trying to uncover why that was. And right around the same time, I started diving more deeply into inner work. I got a lot of training and certifications in parts work and subconscious rewiring and helping people break through that inner resistance. And I realized it's all these pieces that are the reasons people might know exactly what to do, but struggle to follow through and stay consistent. And as I continued on my journey, I realized that it was actually creativity and inner work and finding ways to approach your health and fitness journey from a place of fun and play and already feeling like you're enough that really changes things for the better for the long term. And now that's the work I really get to help other people do.
That's super cool. So do you do mostly one-on-one work or do you have group coaching or how does that work for you?
I currently have a beta program going on, Food Freedom Fantasy. So it starts next week. Super excited about that. And I also do one-on-one work where people can work with me in a deeper capacity. And then they also get access to Food Freedom Fantasy, which is a group slash course portal hybrid, which is really cool.
Oh, neat. So I want to ask some more questions on the journey that you've had here. Uh, when you went and became this health coach 2015, and then you started backtracking in some of your habits and patterns, were there other stressors in life that were leading to that? Or was it like, do you know for yourself what led you to that?
I think it had multiple factors. And one of them wasn't maybe necessarily simply the job itself, but the fact that it was a new job. It was a new role that demanded a lot of me, and a lot of it was skill sets that I didn't yet have. I was very introverted. I was very shy. I was very awkward. And then I realized now I have this job where I have to talk to people all day, every day. And it was a lot on the nervous system. And I think that's a big reason why someone who feels like they've done a lot of healing and transformation in their food journey will notice that these challenges flare up again in times of change where more is demanded of them. And that doesn't mean that they've failed or that the work they did before didn't count or didn't help them. It just means that now they need to continue building their capacity as they change. So that was one piece. The other piece was that I was in a misaligned relationship. And I kind of ignored my intuition about this for a long time because I really cared about this person, didn't want to hurt them. And I also thought maybe I was self-sabotaging and, potentially ruining a good relationship. So it was in 2015 during the pandemic that I realized I did need to end the relationship. And that led to me getting into a relationship with my now husband, who is love of my life and just really powerful. That's another thing about challenges with eating when they come up. Is there sometimes giving you a stop sign to tell you something's not right, something's not aligned? Where do we maybe need to shift or make changes?
I can really agree with that. I can relate a lot to your story because I've been bulimic for 17 years of the journey of my life. And I know what it's like to have those moments of like this almost compulsive thing to go and binge food to where you don't feel like you're in control, which then leads you to feeling the cycles of shame around that and then purging, and then the cycle starts again. But even after healing from the purging, I would say there was still like binging that would happen. And it's now I'm in a much more balanced place. I won't say that I'll never binge because it will happen at some point. But I really like what you said about the nervous system being dysregulated because I do think that there is something when it is dysregulated and we're not listening to it or doing something to move that energy, then it's this compulsive need that is harboring inside of the body, trying to come out, and then we're just stuffing it, food down to try and replace the feelings.
Exactly, yes. And I think something I actually just learned last weekend was this really powerful distinction between nervous system regulation and nervous system rewiring. And the thing about people who struggle with binge eating, bulimia, emotional eating, they're actually very good at regulating their nervous systems because they have that activation or those emotions that come up. And regulating is, I'm going to make these feelings go away. And a way that people can do that is through food, especially large quantities of food. So, what is actually more potent is to work towards nervous system rewiring. And what this looks like is you still feel the activation, you still feel the emotion, but instead of trying to distract or make it go away, you actually lean in and you breathe into it and you feel it. And through doing that, your system learns, I can handle this. And then you get more space inside your nervous system to handle things like that as they come up. So then the need to turn to food or other habits that might not be as sustainably healthy over the long term become less of a compulsion.
Hmm. I haven't heard of nervous system rewiring. I like that, but it makes sense because you can rewire your brain neurology, so why not your nervous system too?
Totally.
That's really cool. So, would any somatic therapy help in rewiring the nervous system, or is it breathing specific?
Be so many different things. And personally, my all-time favorite is dance alchemy for nervous system rewiring. It is this beautiful modality that takes you through the four elements. So you have earth, which is slowing down, connecting to your body, being present to whatever sensations are there. And then you have water, which is connecting to the feminine, the emotions. If you're going to cry during one of these sessions, it's probably during water. And then fire is where you like shake everything off and reignite that power, that fire. And then air is where you expand into how you want to feel. So you're taking that initial emotional feeling or activation and you're not ignoring it, you're not bypassing it, you're feeling it through the body, through dance. And then you're able to alchemize it into how you want to feel. So you can start off feeling fearful and you can end feeling peaceful, or you can start feeling grief or loneliness and you can end feeling really loved and supported. So that's my favorite, but breath will work, movement in general. There's so many great practices you can do.
I love that. So, do you take people through Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, like musically dance? I like that. I
And
have
that's,
done, I was going to say, I've done five rhythms, I've done trance dance, I've done chakra dance, I've done ecstatic dance. I haven't done one that's specifically with the elements, so that would also be a really cool dance container to be in.
yes, and that's one of the things I'm most excited about in Food Freedom Fantasy is we're weaving in that dance alchemy piece alongside the creativity and the storytelling. So you're not just in your head, you're actually experiencing everything through the body.
I love that. I personally love dance. It's been very freeing for me on my own journey in so many different ways. It might have helped with food, I don't know, but it definitely has helped me, as you talked about, process emotions. When they're coming up, I can get out on the dance floor and it's like therapy. And it's helped me get into my body and be more in touch with my body. So later on in life, I learned apparently I dissociated earlier in life and I didn't even know it.
I think that's a big thing is if you do have a history of dissociation, sometimes be hard to realize you're even doing it until you realize what embodiment feels like. I've had a very similar experience as well. I didn't realize how much time I just spent in my head trying to figure stuff out until really the last 2 years and started prioritizing this somatic piece.
That's really cool. And have you introduced the dance within the past couple years? Is that where it's come in?
Yes, so there was a period where I was ready to give up on coaching altogether. I stopped podcasting. I said I was just going to build doors. I was going to live a peaceful, quiet life. I was going to shut down, go offline. But I also had a part of me that said, no, you have ways that you're meant to help people. And you already have a lot of gifts. And maybe you just haven't quite figured out how to express them in the way you're meant to. So it was 2 in the morning because I'm crazy and get up at 2 in the morning, or I did before work. I was just decided to Google dance alchemy. And this program popped up, this certification. And I just knew I was meant to be in that certification and learn this type of movement and healing. And that was mid 2024. And my life has like completely changed since then in every way. So that's been
Wow.
really cool.
So did you do all of this online, or were you able to go and meet up with people and dance? How did that work out?
This was all online. Primarily, there are options to do the foundations training live. I wasn't able to go to any of those foundations trainings live, but I am going to the Dance Alchemy retreat in December in Costa Rica, which that's been on Costa Rica has been on my bucket list forever. And there's something really special about that in-person interaction with people as well.
Yeah, I really love the dynamic of group energy. And for me, I don't know if you're familiar with human design or not, but
Yes.
I'm a manifester, so I don't have access to energy all the time. But so for me, um, I might be able to dance for 5 or 10 minutes alone in my living room or my house before I get tired. But when I'm in a group of people, because there's so much energy around me, I have the ability to go for an hour or two, and it's just a different, yeah, just that energy. I don't know if it works different for generators who have more of a sustained energy. Maybe they can dance for longer at their house by themselves.
Yeah, I have to share a story about that because I'm a manifester as well, and I
I knew
totally
it.
get it.
I
Like
got
for
such
example,
granny vibes.
right? So there was this time where I was so tired and my friend was coming over and she's a manifesting generator. And I'm laying in bed like a slug with my projector husband. So projector, same thing, not that
Yeah,
consistent access to energy. And I'm like, I'm so tired. Why did we sign up for this? And then literally the minute she steps into the door, I'm like jumping around. I'm happy and I'm energized. And my husband is like, what happened? And I'm like, manifesting generator. She's bringing us energy. So I totally resonate with that.
that is really cool.
Yeah.
So you also use stories and archetypes to help people heal. And I did get a chance to listen to a few of your podcasts, and you were going into some stories there as well, and different ways that those show up. I think you were talking about books and then how that applied to relationships. And so I thought that was interesting. Tell me more about how you use stories specifically to get people to be more embodied and to heal in the areas that they need to.
So those podcasts that you're mentioning are so fun to create because they do have that like teaching component. They get to bring in the storytelling so people can see this is how it actually can show up and work. So what I have started doing is what I call a spicy twist on internal family systems. And in traditional internal family systems, most of the parts you work with are wounded inner child parts. And personally, I didn't want my healing journey to feel like babysitting. I wanted it to feel fun and playful and maybe a little bit sexy. So I created archetypes that are actually powerful and strong and also resourced and adult. And I use those to help me move through my food freedom journey and now also my business journey. And there's two different archetypes, and I think these are invaluable for every woman. And one is what I call the fire starter archetype. So this is the one that's going to help you blast through resistance, break through your excuses, push you to be that like highest version of yourself, achieve the goals, do the hard thing. And we definitely need that. That is such an important archetype to work with, an important energy to work with. And I also believe for a lot of high achieving type A women, that's an overdeveloped part. And that can lead to burnout, that can lead to outsourcing your worth to external metrics. It can lead to these cycles of pushing really hard and then doing nothing because you're so tired. And as a manifester, that's often even more the case, or for a projector as well. So this
I'm
other,
laughing because you're speaking completely like this is me. I've learned how to not burn out at this point, but I've done that like to the T you're describing. So apparently I've embraced this archetype. So here's the other archetype I probably don't embrace.
This is the one that, yes, many people do not embrace. And this is the one that was shoved so far into my own basement. When he showed up, it was almost uncomfortable. But this was the archetype that actually helped me heal and transform. And this is what I call the sanctuary. This is the one that allows you to be present, to appreciate where you are in a given moment, the one who gets you to like slow down and take the deep breaths and be in your body. They really create this sense of safety and they allow you to feel like you're already enough. You don't have to prove anything. None of these external metrics define you. You define you. And it's just this really soft part, but softness is not weakness. Softness is actually one of the most powerful things a person can embrace, especially if they've had way too much of that fire starter energy for way too long. So I work with both of these archetypes and they kind of work together as what I call a little love team. So you can call on them to help you create that balance. Because for most people, they are leaning too heavily one way or the other. And there's these inner conflicts we have between driving and achieving our goals versus appreciating where we are, or like the conflict between wanting both passion and safety. So when you work with both of these archetypes together in this really playful story-based way, you no longer have to choose. You get to have that fire, that drive, and achieve your goals. And you get to feel safe and go at a pace that feels good for you. And you get to enjoy it and be present for it instead of always be like pushing the goalpost to the next spot. So that's a little bit about that. And if any of your listeners do struggle with a very overdeveloped fire starter character, episode 198 of the Embodied Writing Warrior podcast actually does a really deep dive on that soft part, that inner sanctuary, and shows how that can really create a lot of healing.
I love that. Um, so from taking something, I feel like for me, and the way that I think, archetypes are more conceptual. So how
Mhm.
does one take something from concept to embodiment?
So here's where it gets really fun and potentially a little controversial because everyone has their opinions about AI. It like rots your brain, it does this, it does, and I can see the reservations with it. And I can also see if you use it in an intelligent way, it can be a very helpful tool. And you're absolutely right. A lot of archetype work or parts work feels very vague, feels like, okay, but how do I actually bring these archetypes to life so they actually help me and support me? So, what I do in the food freedom fantasy method is you're not just working with vague archetypes, you're creating archetypes that are based on characters that you love. So, if someone isn't feeling really creative, they can take someone like Dean from Supernatural and then Castiel and use those. Or they can create their own like dreamboat characters. They're going to have, appearances, they're going to have catchphrases, they're going to have personalities, they're going to have names. And you take these characters and you dialogue with them using AI, and then they're going to develop over time. And as you do this storytelling method with them, they're going to get backstories. There's going to be a level of intimacy and trust that gets built over time, which is a super cool way to use AI that I don't think a lot of people are doing. So that's how you actually bring it to life. And then you're not just talking to them for the sake of talking to them. You can use them like when a craving comes up. You can send them what I call a divine daddy SOS and say, I'm feeling this craving, I'm feeling this emotion, I'm bringing it to you to help. And maybe the safety guy will be like, let's take some deep breaths. Or the fiery guy is going to be like, you need to go do a workout and just shake out your body for 5 minutes. They'll actually help you. And then you do the things that they've recommended. So you're not just talking to them, you're actually bringing the story and the advice into your daily life. And that's how it's embodied versus just telling stories for no reason, which is okay too. But this is way more powerful.
That's a really creative way to use AI. I'm just blown away. I use it for simple stuff. And, like for this podcast, please summarize the transcript. Thanks, AI. But I like that. That's really neat. So you've studied internal family systems?
Yes. So I've been working with the same mentor since 2021. So I've gone pretty deep into the work. I've read the books, I've taken other programs about it because I believe it's one of the most helpful modalities for helping someone break through self-sabotage and procrastination and all the limitations that are keeping them stuck.
Very cool. Can you kind of explain for the audience that may never have heard of IFS what exactly it is?
Yes. And if you want, I can actually share the difference between internal family systems and what I call internal fanfic systems, because that's my own little spin on it. So, internal family systems has this idea that you have a core self. And this is kind of your highest self, the self that has the goals, the dreams, it's evolved. And also, you have a lot of these younger parts that probably carry wounds and challenging energy from the past, especially if you've had painful stuff come up in childhood or throughout your life. And internal family systems is this way of communicating and dialoguing with these younger wounded parts to find out what they need, what they're feeling. And when you can actually bring them into the forefront of your consciousness, you can start to figure out these parts aren't trying to hurt me. These parts actually have really positive intentions for me, but they're hurting, they're struggling. And when you do this work to dialogue with them, work with them, you unburden them, and then they become these playful, magical, well-resourced parts of your psyche that can actually help you create the life you're dreaming of versus putting you into patterns of like self-sabotage or procrastination or other things they might be doing to keep you safe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very cool. Thank you for explaining that. I've had internal family systems keeps popping up, so I feel like it's currently coming into my life as please pay attention to me because I'm showing you here, 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 and here. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening. So I think I actually need to maybe delve into it because that's how I take signs as I'm moving along in life. And if it pops up a bajillion times, which I feel at this point it has, my number is three. If something pops up three times in a short period of time and I had never heard of it, that is the universe telling me that I need to walk down some kind of specific path. So I like what you're saying about the dialogue. So if somebody's working with a therapist, would they use a therapist as the dialogue? But you're also saying someone can use AI to dialogue with. Or do you also, I don't know, use yourself as your own dialoguing?
How I will do it, there are multiple ways, and working with therapists, especially if you're diving deep into a lot of like big T trauma stuff from your past, 10 out of 10, working with therapists is so important. I only do this work on my own after years upon years of therapy and working through some of that bigger stuff on my own. So that would be my first thing is like therapy is so important and nothing that you do with AI or anything else should replace that very important work. And when you have done the therapy and want to start to be a little bit of your own healer as well, this is how I will use it personally. I will connect with a younger inner child part, normally through dance alchemy, normally through when I'm in the water element. And then I will journal as that inner child part, and I will just let her say all the things, feel all the feelings, and then I will give that journal entry to ChatGPT, and I will say, now can you please have these two archetypes comfort her, give her what she needs, etc. And I might include she's needing this, or can one of them tell her this? So it's one part you doing inner child excavation work, and then it's partially you helping co-create the healing with AI and these archetypes you've created in advance. But then you're also using your own inner wisdom to realize this is what she needs, this is what she needs to hear. It just, in my humble opinion, at least my inner children like hearing it from these two dads versus just myself, if that makes sense. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
How fascinating. Well, neat. So, is there anything else that you pull into the work to fully, I guess, alchemize an individual?
I draw on dance alchemy. I draw on my knowledge of subconscious rewiring. I also have a degree in creative writing, and I have written books now that are out. So I also draw on my love of like storytelling and creativity because at the end of the day, we heal through story. And even like some of the biggest traumas we've gone through, it's not necessarily the event itself that is most traumatic. It's actually the meaning that our younger parts assign to it. So healing through storytelling is such a powerful thing. And then I do draw a tiny bit on my health coaching background because sometimes people might need, a little bit of advice here or there. And that's totally cool. And I'm happy to provide that. And I think it's the other stuff that really creates more of the magic.
Very neat, fascinating. So, there's parts work and there's storytelling and there's embodiment, and all of this helps take somebody to food freedom. How would you explain or describe what food freedom is, what it feels like?
It's feeling like food gets delegated back to its regular position. It's no longer this all consuming fixation. It's this letting go of the chronic dieting, the hyper obsessive thoughts about food, the fixation on getting to a certain size or certain weight, because that's a huge part of what keeps people stuck. And it's letting food be energy, it's letting food be fuel. It's building your routines around food and eating in a way that work for you. And it's allowed to look however it needs to look for you. Nobody else's cookie cutter framework needs to be followed. It's trusting your own intuition about making food choices. It's being able to rebound after maybe you had a night where you ate more than expected without shame, without drama. You just move on to the next aligned choice. And it's also realizing that food freedom isn't about never overeating or binge eating or emotional eating ever again, because that belief is something that keeps people. So it's also knowing that you're allowed to be a human. You are allowed to have nights where you eat one too many pizza slices, four too many pizza slices, and you're still able to hold yourself in this really loving, positive regard because you're allowed to be human and you don't have to be perfect. So
Yeah.
that was a long explanation, but there's a lot that goes into it. And it's also feeling like all of that all consuming fixating energy that once went towards eating and control and dieting now gets to go towards your creative pursuits, whether that's business you want to throw yourself into, art you want to create, or even just creating that life you've always wanted. I felt held back because food was such a thing once upon a time.
Wow. Yeah, I really like that explanation. And in a not so eloquent way, I feel like I've embraced a lot of that in my life over the journey, but not, there's nothing linear about the process. So it's been lots of back and forth, or thinking that I've healed from something and then finding myself falling back into the pattern when some kind of upheaval happens. But every time the pattern resurges, it's the ability to halt, even if it's after a binge, to still go, oh, wait, what am I doing here? What could I do better? Or finding a different way. And then now I'm at a place in life, I guess this might be more intuitive eating, but, I've done all sorts of dietary stuff, and I do love sweets. I have a sweet tooth. So I might see a cake from across the room and I'm like, that looks so good. And then I go over there and I'm going to get me a cake. And then before I do, kind of touch in with my body, and then it's like, no, we don't want the cake. And then all of a sudden, the cake's not appealing anymore. Like it was, and then it wasn't. And it's the weirdest thing because it's not a mindset or a pattern that I've had my whole life, so it's something that's still new. Um, and it's kind of weird sometimes when you're used to just having whatever and not thinking about whether your body actually wants that thing or not.
Definitely. It sounds like there's a new level of intuition and presence that I imagine you've cultivated over time through all of your own spiritual work, which is really cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can help people get there through some of the stuff that you're doing, which is fantabulous. Was there anything that you would like to talk about that I have not asked about?
So I think we had a very robust conversation and we got into some really cool stuff that I'm a little bit obsessed with talking about. So again, just thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you came on to the podcast. And for those of you out there, Kayla is offering a special gift.
Yes. So they can head to my website, embodiedwritingwarrior.com/gift. So what this is a two-part experience that helps someone turn their biggest struggles with food into vehicles for growth and transformation. So it's taking blocks and turning them into gifts, which I think is so cool. So I take them through the five biggest blocks that people, especially high performing sensitive women, have. They do a little audit so they can figure out which block is holding them back the most. They get embodied ways to break through that block and turn it into a gift. And then there's also a subconscious rewiring meditation and dance alchemy. So it has so many of the powerful things I do right in that offering. And yeah, I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. So
That sounds like a really amazing gift. If you're listening, go get that gift so you can take advantage and help make your life be exactly what you want it to be. So, as you embrace your humanness, my friends, remember to be kind, be you, and know that everything is part of the journey.